You know, we used to say the cable operator was the gating factor for what video content the consumer could see. As that expanded to satellite distributors and telcos getting into it, when we talk about cell phones, the wireless carriers seem to be the gating factor as to what that experience is. Paul, you talked about consumers paying twice. I'm assuming you're saying we're paying a per-minute charge as well as that fee for watching that content.
Well, actually, we may well be paying more than twice because we're also paying for our cable service at home, so we're getting that video content at home, or the satellite distributor we're paying for that. So we may be paying multiple times, but we're certainly paying for our airtime and we're paying for content if we go down the route that the mobile operators would like us to go down, and that's really what I'm questioning, whether people are willing to do that.
Yeah, and I think the business model that the wireless carriers and others are going to have to essentially converge upon, to use an overused word already, is to sort out a model where there is an opportunity for them to start monetizing those eyeballs, because I think it will take, in terms of adoption and in terms of just allowing different forms of content, so it isn't just kind of a small group of mobisodes, or even with the Verizon Vcast and YouTube agreement where it's going to be YouTube Lite. I think for the greater adoption of video or content or things like that, it'll have to essentially be some sort of a very low-priced or almost free service, but then backed up by some way to extract additional dollars through advertisements or something else.
Yeah, it may well be that we'll actually see the emergence of hybrid models, perhaps with some advertising component in there, and I think that probably consumers are willing to pay a smaller premium and watch a minimal amount of advertising, or have product placements or whatever. So the service will be funded in different sorts of ways.
Well, we've been talking about small media. Let's go to big media, because there's a lot of experts that will say, well, as much as we like things on a PC or a mobile device, the truth is nothing in video looks better than on television. Let's talk about HD TV. Let's go big. I think there's more confusion today about HD and flat screen monitors than ever before. Paul, I know you've been covering this. What are you seeing?
Absolutely. The choices are, the jargon is difficult to get your head around. There are multiple standards, multiple numbers to deal with. And then there's a whole question of, the switch off of analog programming, which is only, 14 months out now. And again, a lot of the public is totally unaware of what that means. If they do know if they do know it's going to happen, they're not sure what the implications for them are. So it's a very, very confusing market. Having said that, the price point of these big flat screen TVs is plunging, literally, down 27% or so this year, according to the numbers that I've seen. So the technology itself, if you can figure out what you actually want, is certainly a lot cheaper to buy than it was a year ago or 2 years ago.
Well, you're at CES. You have an opportunity to invite anyone for dinner, any top executive in the industry. It's just going to be the two of you. Who would you take out for dinner and why?
For me, Bob Iger, because I think Bob is in the catbird seat. He's speaking at CES. He'll be very popular at the show for any opinion he has. He has one of the world's cleverest entrepreneurs and successful business people at his shoulder. He has Steve Jobs. And yet he's a content and consumer electronics company and has increasing distribution and has the ESPN side. And I think what he decides to do and the pace that he does it at will affect the CES 2007 and into 2008 and beyond. So I'd like to have dinner with Bob Iger.
Brian?
I'd probably have to go with John Malone, to tell you the truth. He, I think, played an unbelievably interesting hand earlier there with Rupert Murdoch. I always remembered the quote that he had when he was asked a little while back if he wanted to, someone was wondering if he was going to how he was going to outsmart Rupert Murdoch, and he said, I just plan to outlive him, which I thought was pretty clever. And it played out relatively as I think he explained, but I think, or as he predicted. But I do think that he really is in a position, I think, to dictate a lot of how digital media, consumer electronics are being adopted, primarily because he's sort of in a kingmaker almost position now with the control over DirecTV. I think he's kind of a chess player, of course. He's always, everything he does is sort of the view toward 2 or 3 moves ahead. And so while I think he and Greg Maffei are perfectly content to run the operator for an indefinite period of time, I also think that there's a potential for them to create some value out of a partnership or potentially a merger with EchoStar or an outright sale to a telco or something like that. So I think actually that really puts him very much in the center of the position, right?
For dinner. And Paul, your dinner date?
Well, assuming that Bob Iger is already out with Richard, then I think it would probably have to be Bill Gates, and Ballmer. I think that this year, the upcoming year, is a huge year for Microsoft. This is now an enormous company, which by any other standard should be delivering just 4%, 5% growth, and yet it's a juggernaut still. We're going to see Vista launched into the retail market this year. We're going to see Microsoft push deeper and deeper with products like the Zune into the classic consumer electronics market. I just think it's a fantastic time to be in charge of a company like Microsoft.
Well, fantastic. I have to thank you, Richard Dougherty, Brian Coyne, Paul Taylor, for being with us today. A great conversation. We'll look for you at the show.